calling.
Sometimes in the search for that thing that you're missing is the very thing that shows you that you were never missing anything.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Oak 93.5 FM. I am so excited today. I have two phenomenal women in the studio. I am so excited. And I want you to know today, listeners, you are in for a treat. Today in the studio with me, I have sitting in a different seat. She is actually being interviewed today, and that's none other than our host of City Chat, P. Ross. Let's give it up for her. P. Ross, so good to see you on today and to have you on air and to interview with us on today. And I have a very, very phenomenal lady also with us on today, none other than Joyce Lanier.
Yay.
A fantastic lady. You are going to be truly excited and impacted about what they have to say to us on today. I'm excited to interview them. And I am your host on today, Tameka. Again, welcome to another City Chat with P. Ross. I'm your host today, and I have two great women in the audience. We're going to get started, ladies. Are you ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
All
ready.
right. All right. All right, Joyce. Joyce, welcome. This is your first time being with us. And again, we're very eager to have you on today. And I'm just going to ask that you would just start out by telling us a little bit about what you do professionally.
So thank you for having me. This is huge. So what I do is I'm a licensed addiction specialist and also a social worker. I'm appointed by the courts to work with individuals who have been deemed incompetent and people who have a range of from mild to severe mental health issues and suffer from addiction. And I am the owner and founder of Freedom to Fly, which is a nonprofit organization, and we do a lot of community outreach.
That is so exciting. I have the opportunity to work with Joyce, and we've worked together for many years now.
Yeah.
And one thing I can say is that I am just so just impressed by what you do and the clinician that you are, because not only do you do the practical stuff, but I love how you're therapeutic, and I love your style of being clinical with the clients, and also what you do outside of work in terms of community outreach and things of that nature. Let's talk about your interest. What sparked your interest in this field? I would say it takes people, certainly with a special talent and a heart for people, to be in this field that we're in. What sparked your interest? When did you know that this was what you wanted to do?
So I've been in this field for over 20 years, and I started early just while in college working in group homes with children with behavioral issues, children in foster care, and then also doing part-time work working with children with Down syndrome. And I absolutely loved working with families. I loved working with the children. It was challenging, but it just, for me, it was my calling. It was my gift. And I started from that and graduated and went on to go into social work. And I absolutely love it.
Wonderful. And again, thank you for what you do. Oftentimes it can be a thankless job. So allow me to thank you for what you do for consumers and those who are in need. You also do a vast variety of things in the community, for the community. Talk to us a little bit about how you got started in your community endeavors and outreach and things of that nature. And you told us, of course, about Freedom to Fly, which is a phenomenal company and agency. And I know that great things will come from that. Tell us a little bit about what kind of, sparked your start in the community arena.
Well, being a social worker, I've had the privilege to work with various populations and programs, such as individuals who suffer from developmental delays, providing community mental health case management, foster care, adults with mental health issues and substance abuse, and also aging parents, elderly population who struggle from dementia, Alzheimer's, and the stress that it puts on families to try to figure out what to do with aging parents. And through that, just seeing the lack of resources and struggles that families and providers and individuals faced, I started to do community outreach. And as I was being an advocate for others, life showed up where my mom and my stepdad became ill, and I was able to see it for myself, the challenges of working with someone with dementia or trying to make the right decisions. You want to do the best you can, even if it's placing a loved one. Nobody ever wants to be placed, but sometimes it's the inevitable. So when they passed away, it started my own journey of grief, where I started to struggle with depression and anxiety, panic attacks and other issues. So I became the person on the opposite side of the desk, and it was, where do I go from here? And in my own journey, I struggled with finding good mental health providers. And luckily, I have wonderful colleagues that came through, were super supportive, gave resources, and I quickly began to understand the difficulty with finding good providers, and I refused to give up. And so in that, I started my own agency, providing therapy to individuals, and a lot of people need therapy and can't afford it. And so I started to feel bad because you're charging for services that people can't afford, and they feel stuck and didn't know where to go. So I always say my passion, my gift, it was being a voice for people who can't advocate for themselves, and initially or ultimately that's what drove me to start my own agency.
That's nice. Very intriguing. And one of the things I love about what you said is how you were able to pretty much put yourself in their shoes and understand what they were struggling with, what they were suffering with. And that's one of the things about this particular field that we're referring to, is that you have to sometimes do that. I mean, you have to have a balance and know that it is a job, because oftentimes when I take it home or when I kind of dwell on certain things about decisions I have to make, I have one coworker who will say a lot, Tameka, you have to remember it's a job. And I'm like, it's a job, but they're still people.
That's right.
And so I'm really, I respect highly what you said about how you were able to take your own personal experiences and utilize that in working with individuals, because at the end of the day, these are people, these are lives that we're dealing with, no matter what their background is. Sometimes, of course, we see people who exhibit behaviors. They hate that we're involved, and I often tell people I make people either shouting happy or are crying mad. And so at the end of the day, however, you have to get beyond if you get a good lash it out from somebody, or they say, why are you here? I don't want you in my life, because they don't. I mean, nobody wants somebody that can make these types of decisions that most people make by themselves, but yet you have us who's there to make this decision on their behalf. And so sometimes it's a job where you have to do things that you don't necessarily like to do and make certain decisions. So I think it's really impressive how you are able to put yourself in their shoes and understand that it's the situation that any of us can be in. So thank you for sharing that. And you kind of touched on it. I did want you to talk a little bit about the importance of empathy when dealing with the targeted populations, whether it is a person with developmental disabilities or a person that is terminally ill, a person that is suffering mental illness, a person that is suffering chronic grief. You kind of touched on that, but just talk a little bit about, for our audience and our listeners, about the importance of having that empathy.
So, what I realized is it could be either one of us. I mean, the things that we deal with, these are normal, regular people who life showed up and showed out, and you don't know what to do. And oftentimes, people don't like to talk about mental illness. It's so taboo. There's such a stigma, but people are suffering. We've seen an increase in suicide, due to social media, especially our young people, struggling with low self-esteem. There's an increase in addiction, homelessness, aging parents. It's more people being diagnosed with anxiety and depression. And there's a lack of resources. I mean, so it is important to raise awareness, because it's just, people don't know where to turn. And there's a huge housing problem. And for me, outreach is important because it provides, services to populations in areas that lack to have those resources, especially in rural areas. And if you look on every corner, there's someone holding a sign, that's unable, that doesn't have the resources, don't have a place to live. Mental health is busting at the seams. So, I just find that, again, getting it out to churches, getting it out to the community, talking about it, even when it makes people uncomfortable, we need to have these conversations.
Absolutely. Good evening again, listeners. Today with us at Oak 93.58 FM, I have two phenomenal ladies that are here on today. I have P. Ross and Joyce Lanier, who we are interviewing. Again, we welcome them to our show on this evening. Joyce, you mentioned awareness. Outreach efforts tend to be about, of course, raising awareness about things. What are things that you're passionate about that you desire to raise more awareness about? Now, you mentioned housing. Are there other areas?
So housing, just suicide prevention, being able to access resources with Freedom to Fly. We provide counseling, life coach services, social work services, because if we can't help you, we want to find somebody that can help you. A lot of people are misdiagnosed. There's a lack of mental health providers. People are limited due to insurance. You don't have it, or due to coverage, it's not going to cover the services. Again, people's inability to access resources, and people don't know where to go. So I do a lot of cross collaboration with organizations such as DSS, churches, mental health providers, foster care agencies. I started with my church. I started to talk to my church about mental illness so that, they could get involved. I mean, to me, it's mind, body, and soul. So we have to collaborate with medical providers, teach families about different resources and supports that they can do to make people feel supported. So for me, it is just getting the resources out there and talking about it, like starting the conversation.
That's good. All right. Again, we are here on City Chat with P. Ross and Joyce Lanier on Oak 93.5. We're going to get started with you, Pauline. Ooh. Again, you're typically sitting on the other side, and so we're excited to hear from you on today. I mean, I just think you are a jack of many trades. I love how you are so involved in community and bringing people together. And yet you do this, and it just seems as though it's so seamless. And I wouldn't say this had you not talked a little bit about it online. You just, had a little bout with illness. And when I look at you, you don't look like you've been through anything, but yet you jump right in. How do you do that? How is it that you just continue to just keep on going through things like that, and yet you don't miss a beat?
Wow. I'm going to say my faith in God. That's number one thing. And watching others who have been through just things that I think more severe or things, I've learned from others, I would like to say, watching them just breeze through it. There's one particular friend that I have in mind who passed away some years ago. I watched her battle cancer, and she continued to look pretty through the whole thing. She continued to work through the whole thing. She continued to raise her family and her kids through the whole thing. And I'm like, role model, a cousin, role model. I mean, she's same thing, cancer story, accident where she lost her memory, and another friend in, where is she? I think she's in Kinston.
Oh, wow.
I think she's in Kinston now. I'm thinking about it. Same thing, just watching them go through and continue to have a active everyday life.
That's amazing. And when you talked about that, my mind reflected on an auntie that passed away of cancer many years ago. But I remember her doing the same exact thing. I will never forget it. End-stage cancer, kept going to work. And I'm like, how in the world? So every time I get a headache and I'm like, oh, I don't want to work today, or I'm going to take an extended lunch and go home and lay down, I think about her.
Yes.
She's one of the people, I mean, there are others as well, but she's one who I think about. So that's definitely so impressive that you can look and reflect on people like that, and that can motivate you. And of course, God, because we know that our strength comes from him ultimately.
Yes. Yes.
So you have an entertainment business. You're in the entertainment world. You do a few other things. You do your funnel cakes and all of that. How do you balance that?
How do I balance it? I mean, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a big challenge. But I guess, I mean, I'm just that go-getter. I try to schedule things to where I'm not really overworking myself, but sometimes, you know, it just, it happens. I'm learning now I have to say no to some things, you know, and I have to just figure it out and just make it happen, you know. I'm not that person. I guess the terminology is chase that bag now, you know. There are some goals, personal goals I'm trying to fulfill. And so that's why I do what I do, you know.
Yes. Well, I guess that kind of answers my next question, which was what motivates you?
What motivates me? Yeah, I just, I'm learning to do now what I enjoy doing. You know, that's what motivates me, Tameka. I've done for others so many times before. You know, I'm approaching 54, and I look back at my life, and I'm like, what have I done for me? So now I'm just trying to shift gears and do things that I enjoy doing for me and possibly profit off of it, you know?
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I got to make sure I taste those funnel cakes. I look at it online and I see when you post about it, and I'm like, gosh, that looks good. The only time I really eat them is at the state fair. So, but I see you do it periodically at community events. Are there certain times? Do you have anything that's kind of etched in stone where you have them, or you provide the funnel cakes?
Well, yeah, I try to, because I'm limited with funnel cakes. And the way I got into it was this. When I started my entertainment business right before the pandemic, and then the pandemic struck. And it was like, okay, that was murder to the entertainment industry, right? So I had a cousin who was already in selling funnel cakes. You know, he was in a variety of things. And I was like, hey, you know, people are still eating during the pandemic. So I went to him and his wife and said, hey, I'll pay you to show me how to do this, you know. And they did, and we worked it. And, you know, then I came up with my own little recipe or whatever for certain things. And so I just tried to do that as a filler. But now, because I don't use a truck, you know, to transport what I need to transport to do everything, I have to pick and choose what's best for me at the time, you know. So I'm trying to stick with festivals and things of that nature.
That makes sense. And that you came up with your own recipe.
Yeah.
You know, I hope we have some young people that are listening or that will listen. And not only young people, but young at heart, adults, because oftentimes we think that sometimes, oh, you know, I'm too old to try this. I'm too, you know, and you just said that this is something that came about during the pandemic. So many people talked about different businesses and things like that was birthed in the pandemic. And so I think that's wonderful. That you would start something like that, because I mean, who would, like I said, only time I really think about them or eat them is at the state fair. So It's certainly a wonderful initiative, and I think you're doing well with that. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yes. So when you're in the entertainment business, and again, I've had the opportunity to attend, of course, something that I still think about, and I'm like, please let Pauline do it again next year. And that was our alumni event that took place in the latter part of last year that I thoroughly enjoy. I think you do so well with that. One of the things I know that can be sort of a barrier or an obstacle is marketing, and people are oftentimes struggling with how they get the word out, how to get the word out about their businesses or different initiatives. What are some of your techniques in marketing your event that you may be able to help others with?
Well, I'm still learning too, Tameka, on what to do better as far as marketing. I would love to hire a PR person, but that's just not for me right now, funding wise. But social media, number one thing to do, social media. And I would say as many platforms as you can. I'm not a fan of Twitter. I'm not a fan of Instagram, but you can best believe I'm learning to get my information out there because I got to stay with the times, you know. And then there's the good old-fashioned post it up at the little country store if they allow you to do it. I'm learning in my area a lot of places don't do that anymore. We're cluttering up their windows and kind of taking away from their businesses, but there are still a few places that say, hey, we got a community board for you here. You know, go ahead, feel free to put your information up. So I thank you businesses that do that. But so hitting the ground on feet and on foot and trying to post that information out, word of mouth. I'm handing out my business cards in Walmart or whatever, you know, any chance I get to market what's going on, I do it.
That's outstanding. And it's personable when you do that. I mean, when I can recall whether it was events I was coordinating or just anything, I would go and literally hit that pavement, going to businesses, going to schools, and because a lot of my initiatives were youth related. So going to the Girls and Boys Club, asking people, going to barbershops and salons, putting that, but it's work. I think a lot of times we get comfortable now with social media, which is great, but I think, it was certainly impactful when we were able to kind of be personable, go in that salon and say, hey, if you have some young girls here, give them this flyer or tell them about that. So soft copies are good through email and all that, but it's nothing like that personal touch.
Yeah. And something else I do when I'm not busy or before I go to sleep, I'm on my phone. I'm texting people. I'm texting the flyers. Now, I probably got a few blocks, but hey, I do what I do, to get it out there. But texting, that's one of the other things I do as well.
Right. And I know many of your events are, of course, in the local area that you reside in. Have you thought about, or are you considering going in other areas, perhaps other counties, states? Do you do that currently?
We have tried. We have not given up on that. We've touched bases with other people, trying to team up with other people, but it has not been successful as I had hoped to be. Areas I'm familiar with because, Tameka, I lived all over the state of North Carolina. Right. I've been Greenville, North Carolina. I've been to Fayetteville. I've lived in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and that's actually the first place where I tried to host an event outside of my home base, I would say. I lived in Charlotte a couple of times, and that is my favorite city. So, like I said, I've been all over North Carolina, and then I have ties outside of North Carolina. These are my goals, to eventually move outside of the state of North Carolina. I'm originally from Washington, D.C. I still have family in Washington, D.C., in the Maryland area. So, and I'm looking to expand outside of my home base. Yes, ma'am.
And I think that's wonderful. Just living in those different areas, I'm sure gave you a lot of different experiences and, the different culture, because Charlotte has its own culture compared to Raleigh or where we're from, the Southern Pines-Moore County area. So it's amazing when you go, even Fayetteville. Yes. It's like a different culture. So you have a lot to certainly talk about as it relates to living in all those places. And I knew it was Charlotte and Winston, but I didn't realize it, Fayetteville, Greenville. So you have certainly been to some different places. Yes. And you didn't talk about this, but I also remember you having a little bit of musical background. Don't you do some playing? The piano?
Yes, I have played. I play keyboard. I also know the clarinet. I know bass clarinet, but those are, I probably forgot the keys on those. Yeah. But I do play keyboard.
Do you ever go, because I know I can remember, I think probably before I left college, you would play at some churches. Do you ever think about doing that again, or do you ever currently go to any churches now?
I don't play now for church, but I used to enjoy that. I mean, that's been in my background. I mean, roots. My grandmother, my aunties, they all played in our home church, which is in Eastwood, North Carolina. And, of course, I that bug hit me, too, when I was young. I mean, my grandmother threw me on the piano, and boom, there it was. And I had the opportunity to play at my home church and with some amazing people there. But I have thought about it, but I'm not going to say I wouldn't ever do it again, but right now I don't see it happening. Yeah. But maybe again one day.
Do you read music?
I do read a little bit of music. Okay. I'm not great at it. I did take music lessons course, like I started in band, 6th, 7th, 8th grade band, and I was in honors band playing clarinet, bass clarinet. So I read music, and then when I got to Winston-Salem State, I did take a class, but that's where it was from. It ended right there for me. For some reason, I didn't like reading music. One, because I wasn't as good at math, and then you kind of know a little math to read music, right? Yeah. So I lost interest in it, and everybody that I knew in my family, they didn't read music. They just played by ear. So that was my main thing. I'm play by ear. I don't have to read that, but you know, it's good. It's good to know how to read music.
Yeah, I agree. And even to play, I think it's a blessing to have that gift. And I mean, now it's lucrative. People are, you know, if you have that gift, I mean, they call it gigs. So they're going to these places and playing, and people people pay big money now for musicians, especially saxophonists. Saxophonists. And then you can play the keyboard or the piano. You can get something somewhere. So it's wonderful, and it's still great that you at least have that experience and you can revert back to it at any time. I played the clarinet for a little while. In middle school, but when I got to high school, I did marching band, but I wanted to do the flag, so I throw the flag. But just that little bit of experience. But I always wanted to play the keyboard or the piano. I never learned.
You can start. You can learn.
Again, thank you, listeners. We are here on Oak 93.5 today in the studio. With me, I have P. Ross and Miss Joyce Lanier. We're having some great conversation on today and learning a lot about these phenomenal ladies. Mental health awareness. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. Joyce, in light of Mental Health Awareness Month, what are some needs that you are seeing in terms of resources that are missing, that are impacting those who are suffering from mental illness?
As I said, I think housing has been huge. As like I'm working with people need places to go when they don't have anywhere to go. There are financial barriers, lack of confidence in mental health treatment. People often feel like treatment won't work, or they're ashamed because of the social stigma, people being ineligible for services, and just overall clinicians are overwhelmed and burned out. And so the wait time to get into an agency may take forever. So as I'm, helping people and we're running into these roadblocks, I'm definitely bringing it to the light and trying to help people find resources.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many barriers now for those who are suffering. And like you said, just to get people in to see a therapist is taking months at a time. So imagine somebody suffering with depression or suffering with anxiety and things like that. They're just not enough to go around at this point. And so there is a great need. And then, my goodness, just like if you don't have health insurance, it's a major problem. Of course, if it's an adult, then in order to get the adult Medicaid, you have to be considered disabled. And so, but you're not necessarily disabled, but you're suffering anxiety and depression. And you don't have a job. You can't afford to see a clinician. So there are barriers, unfortunately. And right now it's sad to see and sad to say that suicide is on the rise. And we are seeing more people who are being diagnosed with depression and anxiety. And that's unfortunate. What would you say, Joyce, are some of the things that others can do if they have a desire? We talked a little bit about like the community outreach, but one of the things also in doing community outreach and feeding the homeless and things of that nature that we see is people who are suffering or who are struggling with mental illness that may not have been diagnosed. What would you say is a need for those individuals who are getting out there in the community? Because I've done some things on my own, but then I've also partnered with other people. And when I see how, you're giving them a plate of food, but I see how they handle the individual, or they're, here you go, they don't want the person to touch them, or they see the person doing something inappropriate that I know is a simple symptom from their illness. What would you say, or what advice would you offer to those who may be in the community doing these outreach efforts and they're encountering these individuals who may be suffering or struggling with mental illness?
Again, put yourself in another person's position. It can be your mom, your dad, your family member, your friend. You could end up in that same situation. Compassion is needed. And that's one of the things that I try to do when I do education, whether it's guardianship training or whether I'm talking to churches about being compassionate and sensitive to people who are broken and in need and struggling. And if you don't know, you can always, look up local resources, organizations, contact your local DSS. If you don't know how to work with people, point them in the right direction, and it's priceless to have compassion and empathy. That doesn't cost, so I'm always mindful in my interactions with people, even if they tend to be, not as nice, I'm still nice, because I want people to see that there are genuine people out here who want to help you. It's not always to get over on you or mislead you. It's genuine people. And again, I keep referring to the churches because we need prayer warriors. Yeah. Even if it's just somebody to pray with me, that's helpful. So again, what I do is I collaborate with so many different teachers, doctors, nurses, and professionals in the community, so we can come together and learn about resources and facing the new challenges with homelessness, with suicide. Like, how can we be more proactive, and how can we educate others to do the same thing?
That's great. That partnership and community networking is so important. And also in churches, you see it in churches. I mean, there are situations where a mental health crisis can take place in the church. So I think it's wonderful. And in particular, the church that I attend, we have several clinicians that work in the clinical field, awesome, and that attend the church. So sometimes if something were to happen, I would, be assured that it could be addressed relatively quickly. But in churches, we are seeing it. And I think we're going to see it the more, where people may come in and you may get an outburst, a mental health outburst, or somebody may be declining, or they may not have taken their medications in a couple of days. So you need people, and churches need to educate and find out who's in their congregations that are clinical, who can handle individuals that have these issues. Of course, we deal with the health related stuff. If somebody faints, you got nurses. But you also need people who are able to talk somebody down, who may be dealing with some psychiatric issues. So it's so important, those partnerships that you're talking about in that networking, that this discussion is taking place, because it's real. It's a reality that mental health does exist. And one of the things when people who don't necessarily have ongoing mental health issues, but they may be going through a bout of depression or anxiety, and they say, well, I don't know about therapy. And I always say, listen, the head is a part of the body.
That's
so just like we get our mammograms, like we get our blood tests and all that throughout the year, the head is a part of the body. We've got to make sure that that's healthy as well, because if that's healthy, then everything else is going to fall into place. So we have to make sure we're addressing those issues also.
I have a question.
Yes.
Where does mental health come from? Where does that come from?
Well, mental health can come from a number of things. I mean, people go through traumatic events that happen to them and causes a chemical imbalance. You can be born that way. Again, hereditary. And again, what I said before, like, life happens, life shows up, and, we would love to say we can handle it and we got it all, but you just never know what life will throw at you. But oftentimes with the younger generation, they're using street drugs and different things, which has also altered their mental health and their mental ability. Social media, there are studies that show, because, young people spend so much time on social media, what it does to the brain, it causes early dementia and deterioration. So it's not, it can come from different things. And when COVID hit, I think COVID was also a contributing factor to us seeing more people in need of mental health services.
Okay.
Yeah, and I like how Joyce touched on what social media is doing, in particular with our youth as it relates to their mental illness. We have young people that, of course, we all know committed suicide.
Yeah.
That goes through depression based on social media when they're seeing their friends do certain things and they're like, oh, I didn't get invited. Just something as simple as that causes or triggers a person, and that's what I like to talk about is triggers, because it doesn't mean that, okay, if you get diagnosed with depression, it doesn't mean that you're gonna have to deal with that forever. It may be something that has triggered that depression.
That's
it could
right.
be chronic grief. It could be a situation that's going on with your health, or like Joyce mentioned, an imbalance. So those are some of the things that can kind of trigger it. And again, sometimes people are born with chemical imbalances.
Yeah, that's what how I should have posed that question. What are the triggers, or what causes these issues with mental health? Yeah.
And again, we see it a lot, of course, and sometimes people are going through different things with their health, and and that causes depression. It causes anxiety, job-related issues, life. Like she said, life happens. And that's why, when people are like, well, I don't think I need to take this, or I don't think I need to go see the therapist or the psychiatrist. Again, the head is a part of the body. We want you to be healthy mentally and physically. So, yeah.
And that's one of the questions people always ask as I try to network and reach out, especially to medical providers, and I explain to them, what I try to do. And it's always, well, how is mental health associated with health? Mental health is health. We oftentimes see people who, because they're so in a bad place, they're not addressing medical issues or on medication, and it's mostly people with hypertension and just different medical issues that are also related, that we find, to mental illness. And so I love that I've been seeing a lot of billboards that say mental health is health. If you are not in a good place, you're not addressing your body health concerns, So again, at Freedom to Fly, we promote mind, body, and soul. We think, you need all of that to feel whole. I mean, just to be honest. So
Yes, that's good.
And I think it's noteworthy that, believe it or not, it's about 21% of adults who are suffering at least one mental illness.
Yeah.
And again, right now, that anxiety and depression is certainly something that is on the rise. And while we're talking about that, just offer a few tips for someone that may be suffering with depression and anxiety, Joyce.
I think for me, when I needed help, I surrounded myself with a really good support group. I exercised, went to the gym, used stress management, breathing techniques, get to know your body so you can identify the right provider for you. Remove yourself from people, places, things that don't serve you. Seek out a provider, practice mindfulness. I'm one of those people. I believe in vision boards. I believe in prayer, journaling, manifesting the life that I want. Nobody wants to be on medications, but if you have to temporarily be on something just to get your body back on track, you do what you have to do to take care of you. And I love what you said about just saying no sometimes. Life happens, and we think we have to show up for everybody else, and then sometimes we forget to show up for ourselves. So, saying no, I can't, not now, and putting those boundaries in place. And like I said, getting in a good support group, finding a great a church, where they embrace people who need different support. So those are just a few of the things that you can do to take care of yourself.
That's great. And yes, no is an entire lesson. And I think, especially those of us, you ladies have similar personalities to me, as I should say, where we like to help others, and we're always trying to do something to help people and all of that. So no doesn't always come easy, but no will bless you. And it's okay to say no.
It is okay to say no.
When you continue to take on things, it wears you down. And so you've done for everybody else, and then when you're down and out, you're sick, right, and you look around, there's nobody there. So you do have to be mindful of that and saying no to some things. When let your body tell you when it's time to rest. Right. Because if you don't, it's going to show you it's time to rest, and it's going to shut down on you. So that was certainly a great point you made. And again, we're talking today a little bit about the lives of these two wonderful ladies here on Oak 93.5 FM. And we've touched on mental illness, because this is Mental Illness Awareness Month. As we know, suicide is on the rise again, and I think that is certainly something we need to talk about, because we're seeing it, and there and even in people who have it all, sometimes we look at situations and you think, oh, that person has all the money, they have the beautiful home, they have the beautiful house and all of that, and you think that they're not going through a care in the world. We're finding that they're taking their lives. So it's certainly a conversation that needs to take place, and we want to say today, if there's someone that is suffering, that you're thinking about suicide, you're having the ideations, there's a number that you can call. If you don't feel comfortable telling somebody about it, you can call 800-273-8225. Again, it's 800-273-8225, and someone will answer, and you can help them. You can allow them to help you to talk through that temporary problem that you may be having, because oftentimes people will take their lives, or they think that, you know, suicide is the way out, and it's something temporary that's going to pass. And so we have to make sure that we are getting that information out. And also depression. You're going through a crisis, you don't feel like you have anybody to talk to, there's a crisis line for you. Simply just text 741-741. That is a crisis line. So if you're going through anxiety, depression, whatever the crisis may be, text that number right now, and help is on the way. All right, exploding in social media right now, Tina Turner. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I think we all remember her from growing up. I mean, she was a household name. Yeah. You know, this woman was 83 years old. She looked, I always thought she looked amazing. Absolutely amazing. She passed away. And one of the things I read about another icon, and that's Angela Bassett. So she wrote, Angela Bassett, the Oscar nominee, who portrayed the iconic artist. Remember, she played
she did an awesome job.
In the 1963's What's Love Got to Do with It? She penned a solemn message about Tina's legacy after her passing, and she says, how do we say farewell to a woman who owned her pain and trauma and used it as a means to help change the world? Bassett went on to write on Instagram, through her courage in telling her story, her commitment to stay the course in her life, no matter the sacrifice, and her determination to carve out a space in rock and roll for herself and for others who looks like her. Tina Turner showed others who lived in fear what a beautiful future filled with love, compassion, and freedom should look like. Her final words, Bassett says, her final words to me, for me, were, you never mimicked me. Instead, you reached deep into your soul, found your inner Tina, and showed her to the world. She added, I shall hold these words close to my heart for the rest of my days. I am honored to have known Tina Turner. I am humbled to have helped show her to the world. So on today, while we mourn the loss of this iconic voice and presence, she gave us more than we could have ever asked. She gave us her whole self. And Tina Turner was indeed a gift. That's what Angela Bassett said about her. And she certainly was. I tell you, she was a beautiful, beautiful woman, and who we know experienced hardships in life. So I think everybody, I mean, she blew up social media yesterday. Everybody had posts about her, you know, Tina Turner, and how she just impacted them, you know, just beautiful woman. And it's sad to see someone like her go, but she was blessed to live 83 years.
She did, and she was still performing, and she still looked great. And you know, so again, you know, just living your best life. I mean, with all that she had been through, and how she just popped back, and she looked great. And you know, like you said, it was devastating to hear of her passing, but she was definitely an inspiration to all.
Oh yes.
Any fond memories? Like, I just remember, what's love got to do? Got something to do. I think that just rings in my head. So I think we all just remember her, and just hearing about her growing up through the years, I tell you.
And watching her story. She shared her story. Her story was impactful.
Yeah, it's tough when you see people who are icons like that, and they pass away. And I would never forget, like, just hearing about the Whitney Houstons of the world, you know, Whitney Houston, and how beautiful she was, and hearing about her passing. Michael Jackson, many who just growing up, you heard of them and you just saw them in stardom, and just out there doing their thing. So it's unfortunate, but we all leave one day.
Yeah, and what you said about money doesn't make you happy. These icons struggled with their own mental illnesses and things like that, and they had money, but, just trying to find some type of relief, so you can't look at a person and say they're not going through something.
That's right.
And what amazes me, how she married a younger man, much younger than her, and I believe he was the one that was responsible for the spark in her career after Ike. As a solo artist, I do believe Tina has been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 2 times. Oh, wow. I don't know if she's the only artist that's ever done that, but 2 times. That says something about Miss Turner. But I learned a lot from her. I'll put it like that. I learned a lot from Miss Tina, and just seeing that movie for the first time, and it's like, what's love got to? How much she endured. How much she endured, and then to rise from all of that.
That's right.
Yeah,
right. It was hard. You just had to hold back tears and looking at that just to see just how she, what she took and what she went through, but yet overcame.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, Joyce, you can't look at a person's life and just think they have it all together.
That's right.
And I think that's why, social media has its goods and bads, but I think that's one of the things that it kind of does, and it makes people look at that, and they look at people's pictures, and goodness, they're here this week and they're next week, and they have the perfect family, and you just don't know. You don't know what is going on in the household. All you know is what you see, because we're going to put our best selves out there on social media.
It's just a snapshot of what's going on. You don't know, the whole story. And most of the time, we're all suffering. We're all breaking down. We're all doing the best that we can.
Yeah, that is so true. And Joyce, you have an event coming up soon. Tell us about that.
So I have actually 2 events that's coming up. One is on June 9th, and it's downtown Raleigh, Moore Square. I'm partnering with Street Plus and Downtown Raleigh Alliance. And what they do is like a street fair where Wake Med and other mental health agencies and medical providers, they all do free wellness checks, free haircuts. So it's just a wonderful place that if you don't know where to go, you'll find every type of resource there, from whether it's hospice or DSS or a mental health agency, group homes, foster care. So anything that you need help with, they'll have a provider out there. And that event is June 9th from 10 o'clock until 2 o'clock. And again, that's the Downtown Raleigh Alliance, which I'll be a part of. Yay. Yeah. And then my event, which I'm originally from Kinston, North Carolina, I'm having an event there on June 24th, and that event is from 11 till 3, and it's another mental health pop-up expo where vendors can come. It's free registration. It's free to the public, and it'll be a host of different providers. I have partnered with teachers, nurses, social workers, counselors, school counselors, and we came together, and what we've done is we're collaborating with other agencies to come out, put their stuff up, and give out free resources to the community. And what you do, you get to meet people with similar struggles, and people will be there to help identify the need. And so that's something I'm very, very excited about, going back to give to my hometown, where it is a rural area. Resources are limited, so if the resources aren't there, what I do is I identify them and get them to come to the city. So I'm super excited, and it's again just to raise awareness to mental health. So
awesome.
That's great. It's such a need for that, because again, in many cases, what's missing is the resources. People either don't know how to navigate what's out there, or they're just simply lacking. So that's why we need things like Freedom to Fly.
Oh yeah.
We need resources
and you can go to my website. Posted on my website is we'll be in 220 Pearson Park on Gordon Street in Kinston, North Carolina on June 24th. And if you're in Raleigh, it's another event on June 9th. And again, that's from 10 till 3, and it's downtown Moore Square, right in the center of downtown Raleigh. So come out and support. Can't wait to see you. And again, if you can't find anything, you can always call me and ask me. I will point you in the right direction.
And how can they find Freedom to Fly online?
So Freedom to Fly, my website is thefreedomtofly.org. And I'm also on Instagram. And you can also give me a call at 919-412-1805. 919-412-1805. So you can either email me, text me, or call me, and I'll get back with you. And like I said, I like to think Freedom to Fly is a one-stop shop, but if we can't help you, we will point you in the right direction.
Wonderful, wonderful. Again, we're on Oak 93.5 today. In the studio with me, I have Miss Joyce Lanier and P. Ross with me on today. All right, P. Ross, tell them a little bit about how they can find out more about your events when things are going on. How can someone locate you?
Oh, they can go to my website, WHISK Entertainment.com. So that's WHISK Entertainment.com.
All right.
Yes.
Thank
You can also find me on Facebook, WHISK Entertainment on Facebook. You can also find it on Twitter. And, on Twitter, you'll find P. Ross. All right. And then on Instagram, WHISK Entertainment.
All right. Awesome. You ladies have any plans for the summer? I don't know about y'all, but I've just kind of felt like summer was already, I don't know, it feels like it's been, I think because we didn't have much of a winter.
We didn't
have snow. So I've been feeling like summer started like 2 months ago. But we still have a summer ahead of us. Any plans? What are you going to do? Any trips, things like that? You know, I like to travel, so I like to talk about trips.
I need to get with you on the travel side.
Right.
She's going to Paris and everything. But no, I would, the beach. If I could just get to the beach, I'll be happy. You know, I haven't been to the beach in so long, but just the beach. Myrtle Beach is my favorite place to go. I haven't been in a while. There may have been some changes to Myrtle Beach since I've been there, but that's where I plan on going this year. And then my birthday's in the summer, so I want to go north. I'll put it that way. I'm originally from the north, but I want to go farther north, farther than I've been before. I've met some relatives that I hadn't known very long. I'll put it like that. And I would love to go visit them in their areas and stuff like that. So that's all. Just simple visitation for me. You know,
there's nothing like the sound of the ocean. I tell people that all the time. Myrtle Beach is nice also, but Wilmington, I think that's our hidden North Carolina jewel.
It is.
Wilmington is nice.
It really is, and they have a lot of free festivals and bands that play downtown.
Yeah,
it's awesome. The food is great. I love Wilmington too. Yeah. It's a wonderful getaway within the state. You know, I think it's a hidden gem as well. And I've been running so much, just doing a lot of planning with different activities and collaboration. I'm like, you know what? I just want to go on vacation. I said after June, and my birthday's in June, so I just want to go somewhere and relax, where I can sit down and watch the water and listen to the waves. And so I'm looking forward to that. Just and traveling to see family as well. So yeah.
Sounds good.
And sometimes it's just doing it. Like people say, oh, you just travel. It's just doing. I will never forget because Joyce and she's probably the only coworker that I will ever travel with.
Oh God, we had a blast.
And we went to Las Vegas in the meat of COVID because people were like, you in Vegas? It was October 2022.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and I remember, I think we were in the office and we talked about it, and you were like, let's just go.
Let's just do it. And when do we leave?
Yeah. And that's how we did it, you know. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna cash app you. You find a flight. We're going. Yeah. And that's how it happened. And we just went. You know?
Did.
Sometimes I think when you think about, and you do need, I'm a planner, so I do have to kind of think about things and plan for it. But sometimes it's just like, let's just go. And that's what we did. And that was so fun. It was an amazing trip. So.
It was.
But yeah, I think travel is great. But some people are homebodies, you know, and
if you're a homebody, do a staycation. It's okay.
Yeah.
Tune everybody out, turn on your favorite show or whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Whatever you need to do to feel good, it's okay. Yeah. So
now I have a question for you too about Vegas. Is it all that it cracked up to be? I mean, I know you had fun, but Vegas
does not owe us anything. We did everything.
So the shows were going on while you were out there.
Yeah, water shows. The food was great. I mean, we were able to go down the strip and come back up and just kind of look at the different hotels and casinos just going down the strip. It was awesome.
All right.
It is.
It's
It's nice. You know, it's nice. And I mean, people go for different reasons. I'm not a gambler, so I know people like to do that part of it. But even if you don't do that, I mean, there's great eateries. Just the scenery in and of itself in those water shows are amazing. I can just stand there and look at those.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice. It's certainly a return type trip for me. I like Vegas. Then the shopping is amazing for people who like to shop.
That's
and
right.
We did the spa thing.
Yeah,
and
we did.
And that was like, we did the Thai massage.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It
that was the
different.
first time I had somebody walk
on
I'm
my
a
back.
massage girl, but it was a real.
It was real. I
It
know,
was
like she was walking on my back.
Yeah, and I'm like, Joyce, did you like it? Joyce is like, I don't know, that might have been too much. I love that because I'm a deep tissue massage type girl.
So it didn't hurt? It didn't hurt when they walked on your back like that?
It was, they apply pressure, I guess, to your pressure points. But, you know, I was like, is she walking on my back?
And they're really kind of petite, you know, ladies. But yeah, it was different. It was different.
And we drove to Hollywood.
We did.
know.
Yes,
Yay.
that's right. We did about a 5-hour drive from
Yeah,
Vegas.
yeah, or a little less, and got to see the mountains. So but the drive was like perfect.
Yeah. I think that was probably one of the most beautiful drives I've ever had. Just with the scenery and going out there, it was amazing. So we did. I forgot we went to California and ate there.
That's right.
Went to Beverly Hills.
We did.
Just all that.
We
It was
did.
great. It was
Oh my
great.
God, it was awesome. We had a great time.
That sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for listening to us today on Oak 93.5 with P. Ross and Joyce Lanier. We appreciate our audience on today. I would say that these are some phenomenal ladies doing some great things. So, again, thank you both for what you do for the community, for what you do for people. Continue to do what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Honored to know you both.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for joining us on today. Hope everyone has a great evening, a great holiday weekend. We are up on a holiday. Yes, I'm sure there'll be some people at the beach and places like that, cooking out, all that good stuff. So enjoy, be safe, and please don't speed if you're driving because the police will be out there. Seems like they're out there the more.
They are.
during the
Yes, a lot
holidays.
of speed checks happening right now. Slow down.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. Everybody have a good evening. Until next time, we will see you then.
Bye-bye.